because they really, in a situation like this, especially if you have a confirmed shooting, you're not gonna walk up on a car like that, even if you're carrying a shield.
Well, I feel for all the motorists that are behind the law enforcement here.
Where'd everyone go?
Freeway going nowhere about now.
What happened?
We do, as you talked about, worry about the state of mind of this person. Could be great despair. Who knows? Again, female driver said to be 40 years old. So obviously LAPD had some intel on that.
That was weird.
Dog in the car. I mean,
I saw the zero and I was like, oh, I must have lost internet. And looked down, the internet was fine.
How this person's going to eventually give up, or how this is going to come to an end.
Hit with the Havana ray gun.
A lot of motorists back there not too happy about this right now.
Well, I wouldn't be. I guarantee you that. But yeah, and half the people back there do not know what's going on. They probably think there's another accident on the freeway. But CHP is not going to rush this. There, you see, they've got a completely.
No, they're not going to rush this.
CHP units they have back there.
This could be an hours-long standoff. I don't know if I should actually watch it.
It's over a public address system from one of the units to get that person to give up and come back, and they'll keep at that until that.
These tend to not last longer than an hour or so, though.
And you might see a point to where one of the officers, if they don't have access to the armored vehicle or something of that sort, or as an extended ETA of that armored vehicle getting there, they could very well use a less lethal round and shoot out the back window so they can see inside the car. You'll see that happen quite a bit just to get visibility. And if they're using the 40 millimeter round, it's just a 40 millimeter hard piece of rubber, like a big pellet, if you will, and
a pellet
out that window. But with that tenting, the thing is,
Prometheus has got a pellet for you.
Tenting will hold the window up, so you might
see that pellet gun
go in that way. Then after they get that, that sometimes encourages folks to get out of the car after something like that's happened, because it's very loud inside the car when that window is hit. And if that doesn't work, then possibly they'll use chemical agents such as pepper balls or things of that sort. See hands coming out the window.
I was going to say, we got a hand out the window.
Communicating with the officers behind.
Oh, we got a door open.
Door's open. Could this be the end here? So let's see
Probably.
how she gets out. Does she have, now the door's back closed. Okay, we thought maybe that would be it.
Door open again.
She's got a gun. I'm sure they are communicating instructions to her loudly through their loudspeakers, multiple officers probably, and we'll see if this woman makes the decision to comply and to leave peacefully. We also want to know more about the fate of the dog that's supposedly
She looks
in the
like
vehicle,
and she has the dog in her hand.
So
she's holding the dog. Looks like, is she holding the dog?
She's holding the dog.
So obviously she's letting law enforcement know she's got this little dog with her. Do they command her to
Was she holding the dog hostage?
Put the dog down, put the dog back in the car, toss your keys? That's another one we see, Tim.
Yeah.
I would not. I would let her hang on to that dog, because it's a bit of comfort for her. It's not a dog that's going to cause me problems. Now, she rolled out with a 110-pound German Shepherd. Yeah, I'd have her put the car dog back.
A German Shepherd, the nicest fucking dog.
Not getting back in the car. So at least there's some communications, and you can see the state of mind here to where she is just not complying. She is not listening to reason. So now you have to work with that to be able to deal with this person who now has this dog that's a very small dog. And, you know folks that have dogs that treat them like children. And this is more than likely that situation. So that's why I would let her hang on to that dog to come back to me to give her that little comfort and give you the kind of the edge of it. But confusion, door open, getting out, get back in.
She's coming out again.
Door open, getting out. Now she's...
Hands up?
Well, kind of moving her jacket.
A hand up. Okay, hands up.
Now classic hands up.
There you go. Well,
a classic hands up.
Her hands at least, and she has the dog back in the car. It's dark out. As a dog lover, you always worry about the dog taking off running. You never get the dog back.
XXX30. Welcome in, my friend.
Complying, it looks like right now with her hands up.
This is live out of LA.
Vehicle. We know that vehicle is disabled because
of an hour-long police chase to just come to an end.
I'm sure they want her away from that car for safety. And they want to probably have that jacket lifted up to make sure there's no weapon there. Right, Tim?
Correct, yeah. They'll get her.
I want to see them titties.
That jacket, turn around so they can see the waistband and that sort. But it also just depends on how she's following instructions.
Give that woman a titty. So she's back in the vehicle again. This is not good.
That non-rational type behavior. So they're just going to slow it down here. And like we were talking, they're going to be one officer on a PA system.
I thought she was giving herself up, but she is back in the vehicle. We do not see that often. But we're back open.
Come on, get out of the car.
Doors open
it's okay.
again.
Just come back to us. And you treat the suspect as you watch their
hands up
behavior.
again.
If they're this here where they're rational, you talk to them a little differently. You try to get them to come back. You build their confidence of safety.
We believe her to be armed.
She's out.
And she's definitely got a dog.
Or hopefully get her to come back. But
Got to fall over.
it almost looked like she was going to run for it, but she's not going to outrun any of the CSB
It
officers.
feels like they're telling her to do the hokey pokey or something. She doesn't know what to.
Yeah, that could be it too. Just seeing how unsteady she is on the feet. So
I mean,
What kind of commands they're trying to give her?
her driving wasn't really erratic, though. Just it was slower than the speed limit and slow. We call it slow speed.
She made some erratic moves early on. I saw it.
yeah, but like Alec was saying there, she could possibly be in her. Just the way she's kind of moving around her.
You know, Flash, probably. Cops will take any chance they can to charge you with more.
A lack of direction. So you take all that into account. You just now they're
Lethal game of Simon Says. You just ask, what was that dude's name? Pewter?
as well. So now it's just negotiations, and she's wanting to give up, but not quite ready to give up.
Daniel Pewter? No, that was a
When they get her
wrestler
away from
and
that car,
cage fighter.
You might see a less lethal.
Who was the
go
dude
out.
that that video is just
Take her
insane to
down
watch.
with that. But right now it looks like she's.
He had like an
cooperating
extermination
towards
company.
the
He had like some
officers.
pellet gun or something in a Las
They have
Vegas
spotlights
hotel.
on her. That keeps her from seeing the officers, because when you're in that situation, you cannot see back through those spotlights. So she's just hearing a person talking to her, trying to get her to come back. And you see the hand gestures, talking.
I'm surprised he's not on the ground.
I was thinking Daniel Penny, but that's the dude that choked the guy out on the subway. This is what happens when you watch the news all the goddamn time.
So it's just a matter. She's going to walk back. They'll let her come back at this point as much as they can, if that's what she's doing. It's better to have her come back towards you and get away from that car to where you don't have to expose yourself. You see the officer pantomiming for her now.
Daniel Shaver.
Put your hands up. Yeah.
Oh, it happened in Arizona, not Las Vegas. It was Arizona.
This is a shooting suspect. That's what we've been saying all along. That jacket
Thank you,
is
Flash.
concerning because it can conceal a weapon.
No.
She is somehow communicating with them, but not really fully complying as we normally see, which is
She's throwing her hands around
get
and
on the
shit.
ground or
Probably
show
shouldn't
if
do
there's a
that.
weapon, but looks like they're trying to interact, Tim.
Yeah, it does. And they're just trying to get her to cooperate and using whatever technique works to get her to come back. And they'll keep trying different methods, different types of verbal commands.
Not only get jail, but a cabinet position.
It looks like now they're going to.
Prometheus, you ain't wrong.
They're walking in with their shield. We don't see her engaging or anything. I'm sure they're saying, keep your hands up. And
Stop moving them so much.
some of those officers will take her into custody and put her arms behind her back and try to get her into handcuffs and secure the scene.
Right.
Next stop,
Well, we have a resolution.
check out the vehicle to try to take care of that dog, for one, but then also make sure that there's nobody else in that vehicle. We have not seen any evidence of a passenger.
They are approaching the vehicle with the shield because they're pussies.
Due diligence and make sure that there's nobody in the back seat and nobody in the trunk potentially as well.
I mean, I don't feel like anything's gonna happen, but it'd be
The one guy
horrendous
the
if
rest of them are walking up
something
as
cool
well,
happened.
going up to check.
And don't let the cops near the dog.
Hopefully they had prior information that nobody else was in that vehicle, and because everybody was pretty exposed at that point. But it looks like it's going to come to a peaceful end here. Suspect's going to be in custody, and then they'll be transferred back to LAPD to continue the investigation. But
Yeah, their guard's down now. Nothing fun's gonna happen. So that was live out of LA. Your police chase of the night. I guess it's time to get to the news. Shall we? Nothing big's been going on this week. Munster Balls. We've been waiting on a call in Pennsylvania. We got one just a couple hours ago.
Wendy, put this one in perspective for us. It's clearly going to be a greater majority for Republicans in the Senate, but the name Casey means something in the state of Pennsylvania. What does this tell you about the performance of Republicans this week?
Well, it's just another strong showing for Republicans this week. You're right. The Casey name has been in Pennsylvania politics for a long time, and for the first time in decades, it is no longer. But this is, in a broader sense, this gives Republicans a 53 right now, a 53 seat majority in the Senate, which means that certainly Trump will have very little trouble getting his nominees confirmed through the Senate, and it will be, even if Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, two senators who tend to oppose Trump's policies, even if they vote no, they've still got 51 there.
Well, before anyone can vote, Wendy, we need to know who the nominees are. Do we have a sense of that, or how quickly we will know?
Well, we know they are getting started. They are started already. Trump is superstitious, apparently, according to his aides, and did not want to talk or even hear a name before Tuesday night, or probably Wednesday morning. So now that he knows that, he is probably doing that. His transition co-chairs, Howard Lutnick of Cantor Fitzgerald and Linda McMahon, as former small
Linda McMahon
chief. They are the chairs of the transition team, and they have gotten to work on some names. And we are thinking, we're thinking that the White House Chief of Staff is going to be one of the first jobs named, because that person then can start sort of organizing everything. Kevin McCarthy is on the list, although he, former House Speaker who was ousted, although he has said he doesn't want the job. Susie Wiles, his
Kevin McCarthy would be an interesting pick.
Manager, is on that list. And Russ Vought, who was the OMB chair in Trump's term, he is also on that list. And then for Treasury Secretary, you have a guest coming on, Bill Hagerty, who is
Bill Hagerty
bandied about for Treasury or State. So I'd love to hear what he has to say about that. And there's a lot of other names out there, including for Secretary of State, Rick Grenell, Marco Rubio. And right now, remember,
God, all those names are horrible.
Lutnick or Linda McMahon think, there is one person in the Trump administration who makes decisions.
Meanwhile, things have tightened in Nevada. I'll check and see if we've got a call since then.
We start with a big change overnight in Nevada's Senate race. An updated vote count has put incumbent Democrat Jackie Rosen ahead of Republican Sam Brown. Here are the new numbers. You see on your screen there, Senator Rosen now leads Mr. Brown by more than 12,000 votes. That's about a 1% difference. It's still close, and the race is still close.
It's tightened back up again, but Rosen still has the lead with 91% reporting. There is no call yet.
Work focused on mail-in ballots dropped off at polling locations on Election Day. Volunteers and election officials say they're working to get the count finished and accurate.
So still no call. I've seen no signs of rigging or anything. There are a lot of conspiracy theories going on. Don't be blue MAGA now. Don't cope too hard. Let's talk about the makeup of Congress. Finn Fox, welcome in.
Key congressional races are still uncalled in both the House and the Senate, and that means the question.
Not hanging at all, actually. They're kind of shoved up next to my.
Where we are.
Next to my
control of the House as
hamstring.
In the Senate,
Republicans
projected to win control. So let's go live to CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian. Nicole, let's start in the Senate. This was a really key flip for Trump headed into the elections. How much support will the president-elect have in the Senate?
Yeah, well, for many, this seemed inevitable because Democrats really had a tough map to defend this cycle. But certainly having a majority in the Senate now will make the former president, or now president-elect's job much easier in terms of trying to advance his agenda. Of course, we're still waiting.
And they're probably going to get another seat.
House, but as you mentioned, as of now, it appears to lean Republican. So if the president-elect gets that trifecta, expect a very robust legislative agenda to move very quickly.
God, yeah. What are the Republicans going to do to us?
Here into Capitol Hill.
In the air, Democrats holding out hope for the House. Explain for our viewers why the House is so important for Democrats.
Well, look, I mean, the House is important to both parties. I mean, to be quite frank, House Republicans had a call not too long ago with the NRCC, which is the campaign arm for House Republicans, and they still feel extremely confident that they will retain the majority. About 205 seats have already been called in the House, and they believe that they can reach that magic number of 218 to get the majority that they need, even if it's a narrow one. House Democrats, for their part, though, are also holding a call, held one not too long ago as well.
I might be. You going to move me over to the UK?
Caucus since the outcome of the election. And look, some members of leadership
Can I come stay with you, Warlord?
In spite of some of the frustration and disappointment they may feel because of the outcome, that members of leadership are ready to stand in to try to help course correct going forward. So that was some of the...
Now, of course, the Tabernacle says that we can't come there. Really, really not wanting us to come there. Since you brought it up there, Warlord. I liked it. I retweeted it. I didn't know that he was picking on my friend. I didn't know that the Tabernacle was talking about Chainsaw. You can see I liked both, especially if you're an American leftist. I liked both of the tweets. What did he say? Hold on, let me go back to this. A leading American leftist YouTuber, Chainsaw. Congratulations, Chainsaw. That's almost as good as Matt Walsh calling you a formidable voice in the culture.
JustinFREAKIN is a formidable voice in the culture.
I'm happy for him. Tabernacle has a good following, so hopefully Chainsaw gets some traction off of this. So anyway, am I allowed to come? Are American leftists allowed in Britain? Andrew Clavin. Even Andrew Clavin would tell you he's not better. He's like, I'm the C player on the fucking B team. I looked at his numbers and like, I've got videos that have more views than Andrew Clavin. How does he even have a job? No, they all hate on Knowles. They fucking pick on Knowles all the time. He's always the butt of their jokes. There's a power play going on in the Senate.
Makeup of the 119th Congress is still being determined, but CBS News characterizes the House as lean Republican, which would mean the GOP would hold onto their majority. The GOP will also take control of the upper chamber, gaining the Senate majority for the first time in 4 years. A few races have yet to be called, but Republicans picked up at least 3 new seats: Montana, Ohio, and West Virginia. CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole
in Pennsylvania.
Now, Nicole, with longtime Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell stepping aside from a leadership role, can you update us on sort of the jockeying happening in the Senate and what the next majority leader will be tasked with?
Yeah, well, that jockeying has been happening for some time now since Leader McConnell announced that he would step aside from leadership several months ago, although he did indicate that he will continue to serve out the rest of his term through 2026. But look, it will be a time of transition for
2026. I thought he was up in 2028.
Senate, most notably because
I gotta correct myself from last night then.
Majority next year, and so in terms of potential replacements for McConnell, we're looking at people like Senator John Cornyn, Senator John Thune, Florida Senator
Rick Scott,
who is also making play for this role. And look, you know, it's important to note that these
Barrasso wants it too,
or the election will be conducted by secret ballot. John Thune today saying that he thinks it's best that this should be a decision that's left up to the senators rather than to have former President Trump, now President-elect Trump, you know, weighing in on this.
She had to correct herself.
New reporting on behind-the-scenes conversations with Speaker Mike Johnson and the National Republican Congressional Committee.
Yeah, that's right. Well, this was a call that happened earlier today where they just kind of updated the state of play. As you mentioned, we're currently rating things a lean Republican in terms of Republicans poised to potentially retain the majority in the House. But that being said, this was a chance to update members on where things stand with over 200 seats called for Republicans. And the chair of the NRCC, Rich Hudson, telling lawmakers today that he feels pretty confident that they can cross that threshold of 218. Speaker Mike Johnson also telling members on the call today that he believes this election is now a mandate for House Republicans going forward.
Nicole Killian, thank you.
Well, that's a new one. I hadn't seen this piece. So Trump poised to appoint conservative justice. Can you get more conservative than Thomas and Alito? There's been a lot of talk of Sotomayor stepping down in the lame duck session.
President-elect Donald Trump's return to the White House puts him once again in a position to influence the makeup of the Supreme Court, the effects of which could be felt for decades. Trump appointed 3 justices during his first term: Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, the oldest conservative justices at 76 and 74 respectively, could retire, allowing Trump to nominate younger lifetime replacements. CBS News legal contributor and Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson joins us now. Jessica, how likely is it that Thomas or Alito will step down, and when could that happen?
I think it's not at all outside the realm of possibility. Now, of course, we don't know exactly when, and we know that Supreme Court justices have those positions until they no longer want those positions or until they pass away. But I think that it is, again, maybe more likely than not that we could see at least one vacancy. And for those people saying, well, look at the 2 people on the screen here, Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, they're both conservative votes. What difference would it make to appoint another conservative jurist? The answer is really that Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito cannot serve another 30 years on the bench, but whoever replaces them may absolutely be able to do so. And so we're looking here at not necessarily a shift in terms of ideology, but a solidification of that 6-3 majority, or frankly, perhaps a 7-2 majority. It's a macabre business, but we're basically trying to game out who wants to stay and whether or not somebody
He won't do it, Fuzzy Simba.
Create a vacancy not voluntarily.
So let's pull on that thread a little bit. Would that essentially solidify the Dobbs decision for a generation?
I think it would. I mean, I think that decision is
for a generation
for the short term anyway, and maybe the medium term, in the sense that we know that even when the composition of the court changes, they don't always overturn past precedent. Those are 2 different things, right? First, the composition can change. It could become, I don't think in the short term it will, but a more liberal leaning court.
We won't get that lucky flash.
Going to overturn a recent decision. And that's also a separate question. Now, are we going to live
choke on a pubic hair?
I think for the foreseeable future and arguably beyond that, I think the answer is yes.
What are some of the big cases that could go before the Supreme Court in the next year?
So we're looking at cases dealing with Second Amendment rights. We're dealing transgender rights, the power of the administrative state. And I think all of those are areas where it's not just going to be next term, but it's going to be terms from here on out, where we're going to be having a lot of discussion, Lindsay, about the power of the executive branch, how much have power to issue.
The gravity of the situation really setting in.
The tension of our three branches. The big thing we all need to look for in the next 4 years.
Those do look to be fingerprints on her neck.
How much, if at all, do they stand in the way of what a Trump administration might want to accomplish?
In the minute or so that I have left with you, who could you potentially foresee Trump choosing to appoint?
So this is, I know everybody wants a name here. I think a few names.
It looks like a dog with a boner behind her. I know it's
James.
still.
He's made a number of decisions that were favorable to the Trump administration and or not favorable to the Biden administration. He's known as a very conservative jurist. He was talked about for the opening.
James Ho.
Judge Amy Coney Barrett ultimately filled. There's also a district court judge, Lindsay, that we've talked about a lot, named Eileen Cannon. She's the judge who oversaw the Mar-a-Lago case, and she made a number of...
A horrible judge, and that probably will be her.
She dismissed it, saying special counsel Jack Smith was not properly appointed. So those are two names we're hearing. We all need to remember it could be somebody who we're not even thinking about right now.
Jessica Levinson, thank you.
It could be fucking Kanye. I wouldn't put it past this Trump administration to have some wild ass picks for positions. It could be Kanye. The rich got richer. The world's richest people profited immensely from the U.S. presidential election.
Well, the world's top 10 richest people got a record $64 billion richer from Trump's re-election. The Bloomberg's Billionaire Index says it's the biggest daily increase of wealth it's seen since the index started in 2012. The biggest gainer, Elon Musk. His wealth jumped up $26.5 billion to $290 billion. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos' wealth grew $7.1 billion. And it all came a week after defending his decision to withhold the Washington Post's endorsement of Kamala Harris. Other gainers include Bill Gates, Steve Ballmer, and Warren Buffett. None of them endorsed a candidate this year.
To any right-winger that may be watching this, like, where do you think that money comes from? When Elon Musk gains what 50 billion or whatever, 290 billion, he's gained 50 billion or something, like, where do you think that money comes from? Kanye be the HUD guy, Flash? Possibly. Let's go to the nation now. Jeet here. This time, we have to hold the Democratic Party elite responsible for this catastrophe. Trump won because the opposition party is committed to an ancient regime. I'm having trouble speaking tonight. Restoration in a country that desperately wants change. And I think that's where I'm landing as well. So, Ole had the... And she's right in a lot of ways that this is who this country is. It's racist. It's misogynist to the core. But I think that's also like the Democrats have not offered an alternative. There's multiple issues at play here. We're badly educated as a country. There's no critical thinking skills. I mean, you should blame the Democratic Party, yes, and they should shoulder the blame, but also the people most likely to vote for Trump were the people that believe just absolute bullshit. I don't know if you guys saw this. You were only likely to vote for Trump if you believed that crime was at an all-time high, that inflation did not decline, or unauthorized border crossings never went back down. So I don't, what can the Democratic Party do to combat that? That's what millions, billions of dollars in propaganda gets you. The electorate doesn't even live in reality. How many times did we have people come on the stream that thought that crime had gone up? We too. Welcome in, my friend. I laugh about it. We made jokes and talk about slapping titties around here.
A titty slap!
Come on now.
I said the same thing, Flash. Just as soon as Trump takes office, he's going to claim America's producing more oil than ever. The stock market's at record highs. Crime is at historic lows. I made America great again. While the presidential election wasn't called until early Wednesday morning, by midnight, the overwhelming evidence was that the Democrats were headed for a catastrophe on par with 2016. Donald Trump was already leading in all the battleground states. Republicans were poised to win the Senate, and the House of Representatives remains agonizingly close. Looks like they're projected to win the House. There's a real danger of a Republican trifecta once the last votes are counted. It also appears that Donald Trump has won the popular vote, something he failed to do in his first two runs for the presidency. Trump is now in a position to do enormous damage during his second term in office. We can expect that Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito will resign from the Supreme Court and be replaced by much younger right-wing ideologues of the same ilk. This would ensure a right-wing stranglehold on the highest court in America for another generation. Trump will also be able to renew his tax cut of 2017, ensuring that trillions of dollars in wealth will be kept by billionaires rather than taxed for the benefit of the country. Trump will also be able to implement the extremist agenda of Project 2025, a plan to remake American government along plutocratic lines. And we're going to get to that. Steve Bannon says that's the game plan, 2025. With Trump winning his second term, it is worth noting that there was no absolutely accountability by the Democratic Party when he won in 2016. Losing an election to so dangerous and corrupt a figure as Donald Trump should cause a political party to do some major inward reflection on their own failures of policy and political strategy. Instead, all the Democrats who bore responsibility for the 2016 failure, starting with Hillary Clinton, found a way to blame anyone else but them. This was most notable in the spread of the Russiagate fantasy, which had a small kernel of truth because an elaborate liberal mythology became an elaborate liberal mythology for evading their own policy failures. Aside from Vladimir Putin, other alleged culprits for Trump's victory included Bernie Bros, who allegedly sat out the election in spite, which is not true, James Comey for releasing 2 letters about the FBI's investigation of Hillary Clinton, the media for overplaying the Clinton email story and giving Trump too much airtime, and the general bigotry of the American public. While some of these factors did play a part in Trump's victory, they functioned mainly as distractions from the inconvenient to the party elite truth that Clinton and the Democrats bore a much greater share of the responsibility. Clinton ran an uninspired campaign that focused too much on Trump's personal foibles, while her party refused to take responsibility for neoliberal policies that had eviscerated the American working class. Further, Clinton focused her message so heavily on winning over suburban college-educated voters who were normally Republican and who in fact overwhelmingly stayed with Trump. This caused her to ignore the much larger number of voters who were working class and non-college educated. The key to understanding the Trump era is that the real divide in America is not between left and right, but between pro-system and anti-system politics. Pro-system politics is the bipartisan consensus of establishment Democrats and Republicans. It's the politics of NATO and other military alliances, of trade agreements, and of deference to economists as when they say the price gouging isn't the cause of inflation. Trump stands for no fixed ideology, but rather a general thumbing of the nose at this consensus. The main fact of American politics is the post-Obama era is that an ever larger majority of Americans are angry at the status quo and open to anti-system politics. I wish we as the left could harness that. We really need to do that. We need to offer an alternative to the Republicans. In 2020, he suffered the liability of being the status quo even as COVID was ravaging the world. But by 2024, he was able to return again as the voice of change, bolstered by the fond memories many Americans have of the economy under his presidency and of the temporary but generous expansion of the welfare state under COVID emergency measures. I don't know that was much of a factor. I think most people blame the checks on inflation because Republicans told them to. On October 14th, I published a column arguing that Kamala Harris was replicating the mistakes of Hillary Clinton. The tactic inevitably calls to mind Hillary Clinton's single focus on Trump's unfitness for office, an issue her campaign elevated as a way to win over suburban college-educated Republicans. As Senator Chuck Schumer notoriously declared in 2016, for every blue-collar Democrat we lose in western Pennsylvania, we'll pick up 2 moderate Republicans in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and you can repeat that in Ohio, Illinois, and Wisconsin. Boy, hey Chuck, have you ever took responsibility for you being that wrong? I went on to argue that Harris could still make a course correction and recommit herself to economic populism, and it is true that there was some effort along this line, especially in the ads her campaign ran on local media in swing states. But in the end, it wasn't enough. To a self-destructive degree, Harris tied herself to the policies of Joe Biden, an unpopular incumbent. This gave Trump an easy pathway to again be the voice of dissatisfaction and change. If you would like to read the rest of Jeet's article, it is in the chat. And I tend to agree with Jeet that that is the majority of what the country was feeling. Just a dissatisfaction with the system. And too uneducated to realize that Trump isn't going to be a change to the system. That's what I tried to get across to so many right-wingers, so many nominally right people that called into the show in the lead up to the election. Like, Trump isn't a change agent. Trump isn't a destruction of the neoliberal order. Trump is just going to put capitalism on steroids, which to them probably sounds good. Here's Joe Biden earlier today.
Good morning, good morning. Come on, man. Thank you, please. Thank you.
Oh, yes, thank you, Joe.
Good to see this cabinet and the staff together here. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's good to see you all. Particularly good to see my granddaughter sitting in the front row here. Hi, Finn. How are you, honey?
I've said it many times. Smart people, good people can convince themselves of really bad things if there's a paycheck in it for them, if finances. You have to keep that in mind when we're talking about politicians. Of course, if they feel that they can win by winning over Republicans and screwing over the working class, of course they're going to take that route because that's going to make their donors happy.
For 200 years, America has carried on the greatest experiment in self-government in history.
Well, anonymously, you say that, but like one of the things that popped numbers for her the most was her proposal for Medicare to cover home health. And like, how many people even knew she did that? She announced that on The View. I can't play that on if it's on The View, I can't play it. I know I mentioned it on stream, but I mean, I didn't really give it the credence it needed.
The world. And that's not hyperbole, that's a fact.
I think Joe Biden is probably a good man deep down.
Their own leaders, and they do it peacefully.
You can call him Genocide Joe, and yes, he is.
The will of the people, always.
Apparently an indifference to the Palestinian plight, but I don't think that comes from a place of racism necessarily. Maybe just covert racism that comes with somebody that age.
Prevails. Yesterday, I spoke with President-elect Trump to congratulate him on his victory, and I assured him that I'd direct my entire administration to work with his team to ensure a peaceful and orderly transition. That's what the American people deserve. Yet,
she was that young girl.
Vice President Harris. She's been a partner and a public servant. She ran an inspiring campaign, and everyone got to see something that I learned early on to respect so much, her character. She has a backbone like a ramrod. She has great character, true character. She gave her whole heart and effort, and she and her entire team should be proud of the campaign they ran. You know, the struggle for the soul of America, since our very founding, has always been an ongoing debate and still vital today. I know for some people, it's a time for victory, to state the obvious. For others, it's a time of loss. Campaigns are contests of competing visions. The country chooses one or the other. We accept the choice the country made. I've said many times, you can't love your country only when
You're not the one that's going to be hurt by this.
You can't love your neighbor only when
could have helped avoid it.
Something I hope we can do, no matter who you voted for, is see each other not as adversaries, but as fellow Americans. Bring down the temperature. I also hope we can lay to rest the question about the integrity of the American electoral system. It is honest, it is fair, and it is transparent.
Oh, yeah, there's no rigging going on when they win.
And it can be trusted.
Joe Rogan's like, oh, my God, voting works.
I also hope we can restore the respect for all our election workers who busted their necks and took risks at the outset.
Light one up, tip one back. I'll be right back.
Thank them for staffing voting sites.
Enjoy Joe Biden.
Counting the votes. Protecting the very integrity of the election.
Joe Biden.
Many of them are volunteers who do it simply out of love for their country. And as they did their duty as citizens, and I will honor the Constitution, on January 20th, we'll have a peaceful transfer of power here in America. To all our incredible staff, supporters, cabinet members, all the people who've been hanging out with me for the last 4 years, God love you, as my mother would say. Thank you so much. You put so much into the past 4 years. I know it's a difficult time. You're hurting. I hear you and I see you. But don't forget all that we accomplished. It's been an historic presidency. Not because I'm president, because what we've done, what you've done. A presidency for all Americans. Much of the work we've done is already being felt by the American people, but the vast majority of it will not be felt over the next 10 years. We have legislation we passed that's just only